Welcome to the Proven Principles podcast by Knowing Hospitality, the show that deconstructs and demystifies the inner workings of the hotel industry. Here's your host, Adam Knight.
All right, Josh, welcome to the show, man. It's great to have you.
Hey, Adam. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. So you got this new consulting company going on here. Hey, Hogan. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about that, what you're doing, where you're from, your career, kind of the origin story, as it was.
Perfect. Absolutely. Yeah, I thought I'd just start a company and name it after what people have been screaming at me for 20 years. So this is, I have a 20-year background in hospitality. I spent about a decade with Marriott and then 5 years with Kimpton. And I look at that time period as a period of time where I really was kind of learning the industry and growing up in sales and commercial leadership. So all of that time spent with Marriott and Kimpton was mostly as director of sales with close affiliations to revenue and marketing, and then stepped into a role as a vice president of sales, marketing, and revenue management for Woodside Hotel Group. And I look at that time there, as something I was very lucky to have. It was essentially felt like having a postgraduate degree and all of those things that I was able to kind of pick up along the way. And being a family business, was able to kind of step in there and do lab work, right? Like test a lot of different things in all the different commercial spaces, be it sales, revenue, and marketing. And had a lot of success there, but was also in a really unique situation that I don't think you get to be put in very often, where you're able to test so many things and try out new things because you've got a collection of small independent properties that are open to it. So that's where I think I really started to develop my chops in leadership of those disciplines. Mm-hmm. And so recently, with the turn of how everything is going this year, I've been put in a situation where I've started a consultancy and I'm looking to help organizations out there kind of get or stay on track and come out of this in the right direction. So hoping to step into some places that might need task force director of sales and marketing help, really help structure and set them up for success in the future. And I'm looking forward to diving into that. I've been through the 2002 recession in Silicon Valley after .com bust, and 2009, and had to really grow teams out of that. This is entirely different, but that's how you really grow. That's I hesitate to say fun, but that's when like the challenge that's put in front of you really makes it something that's meaningful.
Yeah, 100%. And with that background, having been through all of these, different downturns and there's bad times that happen and good times, right? So you sort
Absolutely.
of go through all of these experiences and you can draw hopefully on what worked, more often what didn't work. And so, we tried that, it didn't work. Let's try something else.
Yeah.
But as you're pulling back on all, or looking, I guess, taking a 30,000 foot view and looking at it, what are you starting to see out there, maybe based on the lens of looking in the past and what you're seeing today?
Sure. Yeah. I think I want to touch on one other thing as I dive into that, looking back on my time coming out of some of these other recessionary periods, that's when you can really make a name for yourself, grow your career, step in and show what you can do. I know it's a little bit cliche to look at things like this as opportunities, but it really is true. Like that is what we have in front of us here. When you're put back to the bottom, the valley floor here, there's nowhere to go but up, right? So I think that some people should look at that as an exciting time to have opportunity in front of them. I'll dive in here with just a few quick stats, if you don't mind, because this has been really interesting for me to follow over the last couple of weeks. It feels as though we've kind of hit that valley floor in mid-April. So since the middle of April, there's been really minute but small increases in demand since about April 11th for demand of hotel rooms. That's the one positive potentially. You look at everything else, and that same month was the largest single month ever recorded for U.S. hotel room revenue declined 82% in the U.S. Okay. It's nasty out there. I think Europe had 3% occupancy in April. The United States had a little over 15%. So, right, there's a million other stats you can throw out there right now, but those kind of tell the story.
Right. Yeah.
I follow Jan Freitag a lot. He's the SVP at Star, and he's kind of he's the Dr. Fauci for hotels right now. He kind of helps me keep track of what's really going on out there in the market, and it's good real-time stats and fairly trustworthy forecasts. And the biggest number that I'll leave us with here in stats as we dive into this conversation then is the forecast right now from STR is we have potential to be back at 2010 RevPAR levels by the middle of next year. So, you know, you let that sink in for a minute, and that's a decade's worth of growth that's gone, and we're starting from scratch.
Right.
Yeah. So that's it in a nutshell. I mean, it's going to come back in occupancy. No one should be talking about rate growth for 3 or 4 years. Like, leave me alone. I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear about it. It's not going to come there. That rate is never a V shape, right? That's going to be 23, 24. Right now, let's get the doors open and slowly start welcoming people back.
Yeah. Yeah. And slowly, I think, is the operative word there. Like, don't have any expectations, even with occupancy growth, that you're going to see anything really impressive at all for quite a while.
Yeah. I've talked to a few people that are just, you know, you look at almost any hotel, and I think a lot of conversations out there right now are more about which wing can we open or what floor can we open, not can we open the whole thing, and what outlets are going to be there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're down in the Bay Area.
Correct.
Where I'm up in Seattle here. So, you know, arguably, you know, two of the biggest tech hubs in the country, between these two cities here. I mean, I've got 30 plus Amazon buildings all around me right now.
Yeah.
You know, they're a big demand driver into this market, just like all the tech companies are down where you are. And they're talking about staying home or having their employees work from home and maybe opening up occupancies and offices at 20, 25 or 30%, but that's certainly going to be on a request basis. It's not going to be mandated. And so, you know, you look at a few things. You've got, you know, a lot of these big tech companies in these markets saying you don't have to travel for work. We're going to do all our meetings on Zoom. You got all of these conferences that have canceled in all of the cities across the country, and some of those are booked a couple 3 years out.
Sure.
And not to mention all the smaller, you know, I don't want to say mom and pop, but, you know, maybe the law firms and the accounting firms that have offices downtown are maybe going to take the same tactic of working from home, but not make a big deal about it like some of the tech companies do.
Right.
And, you know, something occurred a few weeks ago that really, I would say, illuminated or underscored the challenge that's out there for hotels right now. And, you know, specialties. I mean, they have this, what would seem to be this,
probably.
this unbreakable business model of feeding business people in downtown urban locations.
Yeah.
Right. So they, you know, slinging sandwiches and coffees and cookies and catering business lunches, and they folded up a few weeks back, and it's broken. And, you know, they looked at the future and they're like, well, all of these office spaces are going to be vacant. This is not going to be something that is going to be good for us going forward. And they decided, I know there's more to it. I'm oversimplifying it, but you get the point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first step in my mind is that regional leisure drive market, right? Let's focus on getting people out of their homes, giving people a little bit of a reprieve. You know, in many ways, the hospitality industry is custom built to help pandemic recovery, right? We've built these clean, safe little incubators. You've got your own room. As long as we're taking care of these spaces for people to get out in many cases and enjoy, and they're going to be able to get in their cars before they're going to be able to get in a plane. And I think that urge for people to get out right now, their mental health, is going to be back a lot sooner than any demand drivers from a business, whether it be group or business travel.
Right. You know, when I was part of the relaunch team at the Monarch Beach Resort down in Orange County.
Okay.
This is going back to 4 years or 5 years from now. And it was something very similar. There were very similar conversations going on in terms of how do we get more people to know about, you know, this new resort that doesn't have the St. Regis brand behind it anymore.
Yeah.
Now we're going out there with this new name, and it's a beautiful building on an amazing location, but nobody knows what it is when you
Yeah.
just search it and it shows up. And so, we started talking about targeting people on Pandora, doing Pandora advertising
Yeah.
to like a certain radius around the hotel, that
A
like
lot of trying new
geolocating,
things.
a
Yeah.
lot of trying new things. And, that's, you're going to be doing a lot of that.
Yeah. That just made me think of a story. So I'm going to go back to 2002. I just moved back into the Silicon Valley, or to the Silicon Valley for my first time. It was right after the dot-com bust. And I'm in a town called Newark, and we label ourselves the gateway to Silicon Valley because it's distinctly not really Silicon Valley. But you got to get that name in the title there. And
SEO.
I'm thinking about, thinking forward to some of the sales techniques that we're going to have out there, and how it's going to be just a lot more aggressive. And I'm I don't know, early 20s at this point, and I have a GM who shall remain nameless, but also very, very aggressive to the point of sketchy. And I'm working at a Residence Inn, an extended stay property. And we got to the point where on Thursdays and Fridays, we would go to a competitive extended stay hotel, and we would camp out in the parking lot. And we would offer people rates and help them pack their stuff up and drive them over to the Residence Inn. Like, we had a 6-story hotel that had just opened, and we were trying to get 2 floors of it open.
Yeah.
And it was
guerrilla
warfare.
tactics.
Yeah. And I haven't been in a situation like that since, and I never thought I'd be thinking about stories like that in any realistic fashion ever again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's going to be some unique things that are going to need to be done, or of a competitive nature on the sales side of things here too.
Yeah, and a little more than just dropping off donuts.
Exactly. Yeah. One thing that I've got some notes here in front of me too, in terms of just the star data I was talking about, that reminded me as I think through that select service story. The playing field gets leveled here too, right? So the hardest hit right now, and I think for probably a couple of years, is that luxury and upper upscale class. And you've seen the demand for those properties just drop precipitously more than your economy or select service brands.
Right.
And now those properties are going to have to market towards their luxury customer, their normal customer, and really also focus on, like, how do we bring in that budget-oriented customer and offer them whatever we can? Like, how do we reevaluate our product offering?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, when you've got some of these big, upper upscale and luxury brands that have the marketing power behind them and the name recognition, and when they start competing on rate with some of these smaller, maybe mid-tier or, further down the chain type of properties, it's going to be really tough for some of those smaller hotels to compete.
Yeah, and your urban markets, I think, will feel that the most, right? Where you've got a high concentration of all of the different segments and tiers of hotels within a couple block radius. That's why I really think some of these destination properties, it's not a leg up, but it's just a different type of sell right now, like getting people out. I think the urban markets are going to have a really tough competitive time coming back, and should expect it to be a little bit longer road.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So, with some of these smaller hotels, just speaking about marketing and positioning and, going up against some bigger names, the big talk right now, of course, is all about cleanliness and sanitation and safety and all of those things. Those are all very important, but that's going to start to go away. You can't necessarily trade on that going forward. So how do you, what's the message that some of these smaller companies need to get out there so they can compete?
Yeah, I think you hit on it right away here, in that there's already been a lot of marketing of our practices around how we're cleaning and what we're doing to help through this pandemic and get people feeling safe coming back in the door. I think what's important to realize from a marketing perspective really quickly here, as soon as that message is out, that, like, okay, we have this, we've done it, that's not a marketing benefit. That's an amenity. That's, like, someone's going to be looking for travel. That's like saying we have beds now, right? You have to have a clean hotel.
Right.
So I would encourage people to, as quickly as possible, try to move back to your positioning statement. Like, why are you? Like, what are you doing? Like, what were you 6 months ago? refocus, double down on your efforts there, because marketing cleanliness, again, that's not something that I'm not
It's got a
leaving my
short
house
runway.
to go someplace cleaner than my house. I'm like, what are you offering me exactly?
Yeah.
And I say that from a sales mindset too, in that, when we train sales, we're training to sell benefits first and then complement the benefits you're selling with the features of your product. And if you're in a situation where you're having to overcome objections, what we always try to ensure we instill, one of the last things I train, is never to minimize thoughts of safety or security.
Mm.
They're just impossible things to minimize or sell against, because there's such a personal feeling about them that you don't want to get stuck in diving into those with someone. You're going to end up in an argument, not a sales conversation.
Yeah.
So, the industry will lead its messaging that way. I don't think we need to. So again, I mentioned earlier, start by talking to your drive market. Be a refuge for your community. It's a quiet, safe space to work. Even maybe that's how you get local business travelers back. Air travel is almost certainly going to lag hotel recovery. Hotels should hopefully start to come back sooner because of that drive market. And then I think I'd want to reemphasize again, throw your business plan away. Like, what your positioning is. You've got to rewrite who you're going after, because I don't care what tier hotel you are, your demographic just changed. The people that can afford you has changed. And so, you've got your demographic from 19, you've got your 2019 luxury customer who may have experienced a loss of income and they need to scale back, or your mid-scale customer who didn't lose their job and this is their chance to go stay luxury. How do you speak to that customer? So it's really about, if I am a hotel on the beach, well, God bless you if you're a hotel on the beach right now, because you're coming back first. Really focus on those things that you can deliver and speak from the heart about the joy of travel, right? Even the business traveler who can do a meeting via Zoom. I'm someone who I love to travel, and I know I can do this meeting with you now, but I would rather come have a beer in Seattle.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, sell me that beer. Don't sell me your bed and your clean hotel.
Yeah. And sell the experience.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of what it comes back to. Create that emotional connection, that hook.
Yeah.
And make them want to be there. And you're not going to do that with masks and sound.
Right. It sounds so simple. And even when I say it, I'm wondering, like, am I speaking to anyone out there who's not listening to this, just being like, yeah, we know. but you don't see it put into practice as much as you hear it talked about being what you should do.
Well, and that's a good point too. I mean, sometimes, a blinding flash of the obvious is important when you're stuck in the weeds of everything that's going on, because it's very easy to just get wrapped up in the narrative of what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Say, okay, well, I see everybody getting this message out there. I got to do the same thing so that we keep the playing field level.
Yeah.
And that's, that might be good for the next couple of days here, but you got to be thinking 30, 45, 90 days from now.
I'll say too, as we go through this, I think I really skew towards independent, more boutique type of strategies. As I'm saying this, I think back to, with Marriott, where they really stake their claim is consistency in marketplaces and knowing you're going to get a consistent product, consistent cleanliness. There is a benefit to that when you're looking at a brand of that size, whether it be any of the 40 brands within that umbrella now.
Right.
But from an independent focus, I've learned much more to sell what's around my hotel rather than what is in my hotel, because that competitive landscape is all about how do we, as a hotelier, give you access to the destination you're visiting. It's not about your room as much as it's about where you're going. And that can hold true for larger brands too, but that's the defining factor that the independent properties have to really lean on and push, because they don't have the massive scalable trust that's built in at a Marriott.
That's a really interesting point. If you're following any of the trade journals, any of the posts that you're seeing. I mean, I've been on a bunch of webinars over the last few weeks here, and a lot of them are hosted by senior level executives of brands. And the message that's coming out is that, brands inherently have a trust factor in the market.
Right.
And so, just because you've got this flag on the top of the building, they're going to be better at providing a safe, clean, sanitary environment, strictly because there's a brand on the door, and it's implied that there's better controls and there's better processes and systems in place. And, that's not necessarily always the case, but independents are going to be battling that.
Yeah. And this, I've seen you actually do this really well in our time working together in the past, where the independents then need to focus on who can lend legitimacy to your practices, like Forbes, AAA. Use them as, we are certified by this other organization, so that the brand recognition right now is more to help you with the trust factor rather than it is the buying process.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you can sort of hitch your wagon to another known entity in the market who provides a service that might be able to, provide some credibility to what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So as with some of these smaller properties in particular, because I think it's an interesting road to go down, what are some, from your perspective, some places or some tactics that they might be able to use that are maybe a little non-traditional, but maybe they're traditional but aren't being thought of right now, just to get their message out there?
Yeah, I think there's always this fear from the independent side that you can't compete with the brands because of their marketing spend and that power. Two things here, really. I think it's important to remember that marketing spend is generated by a percentage of revenue from their management agreements. That they're not going to have. They'll have more than you still, but that power is going to be diminished a little bit right now. Like, they're not going to be spending as much unless they're really digging deep into investors and some of the same avenues that some independents might have as well. They're not generating revenue that's going to generate that then marketing dollars to spend. So the leg up there isn't as dramatic as you would think. And I also feel sometimes, although they're very good at marketing then the trust factor, the safety, the independent companies can be unencumbered by those national campaign needs, right? Like, if you're a dependent hotel, you're going to be spending money potentially on regional or national campaigns that don't drive traffic directly to you. They drive the traffic to the brand around you, and that ultimately helps, but it's not in a situation that I mentioned earlier with the example about helping people move hotels in an uber competitive marketplace. You need marketing for your destination. I live in Los Gatos. I need to market this town, not Northern California, even in that example. So I think that's important to remember. Like, you can compete. Don't go into it feeling like you can't. You've got similar resources. You just have to focus them in the right way. The biggest thing that I would say here that I would try right now, this is where I'm gonna get some of you GMs to unsubscribe from your podcast right now. It's time to rethink OTAs. You've got an opportunity here. I would really encourage everyone to dive deep into where you're spending your marketing dollars, and to first realize that every commission percentage that you spend on an OTA is a marketing dollar. We decided not to market for ourselves as independents. They're doing it for us. So
that's a really good point. Right.
I'll elaborate on this a little bit. I think it's taking back the power, right? And one of the things that I did a lot of case studies on this in my time with my last employer, and we really looked at, we had a group of 10 hotels, and we took a really hard look at how much we're spending annualized with a singular OTA partner, and what would happen if we cut that relationship off, took that money, and invested it in the right people, and then used the rest for our own marketing.
Mhm.
And what a lot of hoteliers don't realize is, we're all spending between 12 and 22%. It's kind of the range on commissionable bookings with third parties.
Mhm.
Probably it's closer to 15 to 18 on average, but it ranges.
Mhm.
And when you look at call it a 200 room or slightly smaller hotel over a year, you can be spending pretty easily $250,000
Mhm.
in marketing on that OTA partner. And what a lot of hotels don't realize is that when they're doing that and also spending money on direct customer acquisition, doing their own marketing, they're just driving up their costs.
Mhm.
And Google's sitting over here in the corner, like they own the boxing ring, and you're in there with the OTA partner paying to be in the boxing ring, just giving Google your money, both of you fighting for who's going to get the eyeball. And the point I'm trying to make is, it's not smart. It's been necessary, but it's not smart to do both. If you're going to have an OTA strategy, just lean into it and let them send you your traffic,
Mhm.
or do it yourself. But when you try to do both, it's oil and water. Like, you're giving them money to market against you, and then you're paying to market against them marketing against you. You're throwing your own dollars away.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's you're driving up the cost of those ads.
Right.
So take that $250,000 in this example, spend 100 of it on the right person, spend another 150 of it on your actual marketing spend,
Mhm.
and drive those customers yourself.
Mhm.
It's hard to do in that example with one hotel. With 10, if you can get buy-in, that's where you start to really see success.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And cutting off that drip,
it's
hopefully maybe
scary.
it's a faucet. It's scary because you're like,
Yeah,
because your ROI might, I mean, it's certainly not going to be immediate, and
yeah,
it might even take a year and a
yep,
half. I mean, because just, if you're going to turn off that constant flow of reservations coming into your system,
yeah,
and then suddenly you're trying to create awareness around what you're doing. People are already trained to go to OTAs. Not everybody,
right.
but I mean, that they're
Yeah, they
successful
are.
because they
Yeah,
have a huge market share.
yes,
And
yep,
so yeah, you just got to be willing to ride out the.
yeah. Yeah, I think the landscape has changed in my mind over the last 3 or 4 years, also because of Google, we'll say. Um, the market share that OTAs have had, to me, is a little less relevant because it's all coming through the search engine at this point. And if you can invest heavily enough to be at the top of the search engine, that's where you're going to start collecting the travelers. They're not, very few people are typing the OTA name into their search bar, right?
Right.
They're searching for the destination. And if you can put yourself there amongst the top 2 or 3, that's where you can start to convert. And it's hard, but I also say, like, what other segment of your business are you fine with just taking 20% off the top? Almost none.
Right.
And so that's where I think that's just a really smart place to look right now. It's a good opportunity.
Yeah, and I guess expanding on that just a little bit here. I mean, typically your strategy might be to layer in. You've got your base of corporate travel, and then you've
Right.
got group is a big layer of that, and then you sort of fill in the gaps with OTAs and some leisure travel. But if that filling in was this, and now it's this because you don't have group and because you don't have business travel, that
Yeah.
20%, I mean, you're talking pretty big numbers before you're talking serious dollars now.
Yeah. And that's the argument. Like, that's why this needs to be a conversation, I think. And every property and every marketplace is going to be different. And your competitive conditions, how strong your regional, your CBB, your destination marketing in plays a role in this as well.
Mm-hmm.
I should step back and say, I think one of the reasons we tried this in my last role is that we had a really solid team of distribution and marketing professionals that could help think through this strategy. There's a lot of people out there looking for work right now, and I think this would require investment in a really smart strategic, and hopefully both a strategic and really tactical digital marketer. You have to have, this has to be someone's full-time job every day coming in and managing campaigns all day, every day. And if you're doing it for 10 hotels, you might need a team of 4 people.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels way too many people right now when you maybe can't staff your front desk.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I encourage you to take a step back and don't look at it as the people, but are you going to still spend $250,000 on the OTA this year?
Mm-hmm.
Look at the bucket of money and decide what to do with the bucket rather than, do I need 4 people?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that.
Yeah.
So, as we're starting to get our arms around what's going on in the market right now, because I think we still are, we're still trying to figure out where things are at. And yes, hotels are opening right now. I mean, what is it? It's June 12th. So, we'll see how this all plays out. But, we were in good times.
Right. Very.
Not very good times, not that long ago. And, good times sometimes will mask bad practices just because you don't have to work very hard to get the business.
Yep.
Are there any bad practices that maybe were around when times were good, not that many months ago, that people really need to be on the lookout for now?
Yeah, I think there's a complacency that comes with good times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes you're riding the wave and it's hard to focus on some of the little things, or our focus just goes to other things and is much more, how do we, what new amenities can we bring to the table? How do we really evolve the experience?
Mm-hmm.
And we still obviously need to be focused on those things, but from a sales and customer acquisition standpoint, the thing that comes to mind first, I think, is just be present with what's going on around you. Like we get on the same page with stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say this. Like a lot of times we're letting budgets drive what we're trying to do. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to always try to let performance drive what we can do, right? We would often set goals, and this is where we have to be really careful about it now, based on what we want, rather than what can happen. And what I'd love to see more and more organizations start to do is, for example, run a trailing 12 budget model, right? Like don't spend 4 months from July to October writing next year's game plan that by March of next year, you haven't looked at for 3 months.
Right.
Like, I think it's easier said than done, but getting into a place where, as I said earlier, throw your business plan away and write a new one today, and write a 30, 60, 90, and then go from there. Like write that 12-month budget, but redo it every month. And at the end of your month, the last 3 days, you wrap things up, the first couple of days of the next month, then budget February when you've exited February. And don't just give me this, because it gets worse as the year goes along too, right? Like when you're in September each year on a budget that you wrote in July of the previous year, it's crap. And it's, and you've got people trying to reach goals that may be just completely out of line with reality. And so I think we end up there because stakeholders and financiers operate a little bit differently, and we need to learn how to work with them in that regard and make sure that there's a sense of, we know what's going to happen this year, or still have a plan in place.
Right.
But flexibility there is going to be key. I'll pause there for a minute.
It's a good point. It was a practice that I came up doing anyway, was reforecasting, the rest of your year every month. And that was something that was driven in the large brands.
Right.
But, you always had a focus on budget, but it's a snapshot in time. And you're really looking at a crystal ball. You're using the best information available to you at the time when you did it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take into account, because it can't, anything that changes going forward.
Exactly.
That's why you reforecast, right?
Yeah.
And that's a practice, I think, that more than ever today, because our industry is changing hour by hour right now.
Exactly.
That you got to get in the practice of doing. For sure.
The other big thing that I'll riff with you a little bit on here I've got some ideas about it, and I've really been thinking about this for the last 4 or 5 years, and I think it's an important thing to take stock of right now as well. We need to try to find better ways to bring true sales professionals into the business. And that when you look at other industries in sales, be it pharmaceutical or finance or whatnot, you have these laser focused individuals who are trained on sales and contracts and negotiations, and that's what they do. And they're not asked to step behind a front desk or go deliver an appetizer to a table. Again, your GMs are unsubscribing like crazy right now. But like, get these high-powered salespeople potentially out of the building and let them be sales, right? Like, differentiate them. It's a different personality type. The best salespeople sometimes are really bad at customer service. Not always. Like, sometimes you can do both.
Yeah.
But they're trained to not hear no, and they're not going to try to take care of that. Like, they're trained to get you to say yes and to plow through.
Yeah.
And that's not always the same personality type.
Like, let the horse run.
Yeah.
Don't have it pulling a cart.
Yeah. And the tricky part is, right, you need to have people present at the property as well. And so, I've looked at organizations where can you bring that senior level salesperson off-site, let them sell, let them get in front of the customer in where the customer lives, where the customer is, have them be capable, obviously, of getting to the hotels for site tours and to showcase, but also think that's where your junior sales team lives. They're at the property, they're detailing events, they're learning the hotel business, they're learning the industry, they're doing the site tours, they're welcoming and hospitable to that customer when they're on site and helping them understand all of the features of the property, while you've got this salesperson who can clearly articulate a contract and negotiate with a client much, frankly. Like, hotel contracts can be insane, and many hotel salespeople haven't read their whole contract. Like, they couldn't walk you through it. And you really need to have that laser focused individual who's good at that. Your TMCs on the flip side, like your good meeting planners that work especially for big brands, the hours that they spend in learning how to negotiate and get what they want in contracts compared to a hotel sales manager it's unrealistic to expect the sales manager to compete and get what you want.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I mean, again, in the consolidation of trying to expand everybody's jobs across, many different departments in the hotel. Maybe you have front desk people, valet parkers, and being concierge and bellman. Sales is maybe one of those departments that you should just kind of allow them to go and do the thing that they do best.
Yeah, it's an interesting, we grow salespeople through our hospitality organizations usually, which is how I'd recommend you do it anyway. You want people who know the business, but that adds a layer of like, okay, now we need to train them to be salespeople after we've trained them to be hoteliers and hospitality individuals. So, and I should also say again, I think after a decade of being in the independent space, I'm not saying anything that some of the major companies haven't already tried or already switched to doing, right? Like, you look at the Marriott sales organization, they're largely in a very similar situation to what we just described. I think in order to compete, for the independent hotels to compete at that same level, they need to take a page out of that book and look how that's working and really try to deploy their sales forces in a similar way. It's always just been a battle because it's such a high touch industry, and you need as many people in the building as possible to take care of guests. And so there is a fine line there. And there are, I think, Marriott again as an example, I think they probably went through a lot of growing pains convincing a lot of operators to let it happen. This is a good period in time to try to let it happen, right? You've got 10% occupancy. Let those salespeople really go get good at their discipline and their profession. Send them to training. Hire people to come train them. Plug.
Like, invest in it. Like, make it, yeah, right. Yeah, call Josh.
Yeah,
he'll come.
Exactly.
Come. Yeah, you're fine getting on planes right now, are you?
Absolutely. Supply of N95 masks.
Yeah, right. As we've been going through all of this here, There's a lot of new learnings, but looking back, obviously on old experiences, and pulling from what you've done in the past to be successful now. As you look at your career and what you've been through and what you need to learn today, are there any resources that you've gone after, or places that you've gone to learn to keep your skills sharp, that other people might get a benefit from?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I always, in coaching sales people who are coming up the ranks and looking to see, what they want to do next, what's their 5-year plan in sales, I always encourage them to think through the two sides of, I think, what happens in sales and hospitality, and that you can go a leadership direction and move up into a director of sales or a regional or VP. And that's the path that I took. I always wanted to be a sales leader. I really liked the structure of it. I liked the business of hospitality and the strategy of it. And always surrounded myself with people who were better salespeople than me. That's not me. I really enjoy being out there on calls and closing and being with customers. But I don't have the energy that some of the salespeople who are just pure salespeople just can constantly bring day in and day out. And sometimes coaching one of those salespeople that wants to be a director of sales and they're just an epic salesperson, go be an NSO, go be that national sales representative, be the face of a company.
Yeah.
It's not, that leadership side isn't for everyone. So I start there because I think there's two different sides of it that you can go to. And for me, the things that have helped me grow in my career are staying really tight with my revenue and marketing partners, specifically revenue management, right? I'd always say, like, the first person I'd want in my commercial organization is a revenue manager who can sell or speak, basically, right? Like, revenue manager you want to put in front of stakeholders. And I look at myself that way a little bit more than a salesperson first. So go get your CRME, learn how to really digest and then reiterate what's on an STR report to someone and help other people understand what's going on in the marketplace. So I've come across too many salespeople who've been selling for 5 years who are like, can you help me look at the STAR report? Like, you should have looked at that 5 years ago. So,
right.
And that'll help you know where to book your business, where you're going to make money as a salesperson too. So
right.
I definitely lean on that.
Data analysis.
Yes.
And it's a very attractive skill if somebody can take data like what's in a STAR report and create a narrative around it that makes you not only like interested to hear what is actually going on, but that like it gives the story behind the numbers. Anybody can, like we used to say, anybody can read a P&L, right? I can see what the profitability is. Tell me what's going on behind the numbers. Why are the numbers the way that they are?
Right.
And it's a good skill to have.
Yeah, that's the point, right? I think a lot of salespeople are excellent storytellers. And if you would take that time to train yourself on how to understand some of the financials or some of the things that are going on behind the scenes, you're going to be so great at telling the story. That's what you're naturally good at anyway. So arm yourself with that. And then the other piece to that, I would say, I don't love starting hotel salespeople in sales, or hiring that pharmaceutical salesperson to come be a sales manager for a hotel.
Right.
Learn the business. I was lucky enough very early in my career to have an opportunity. I started at the Marriott in Fort Collins in college, and it was called the Marriott Advantage Partnership Program. Shout out to Tracy Rissman, my first GHR, who got me into that. Thank you. And you spent 3 months in 3 months at the desk, night audit, housekeeping, banquets.
Huge.
20 years later, that is still huge in my career to be able to at least have some knowledge of like how to put a dance floor together in a crunch. It just, that stuff is extremely helpful, and it helps you not sell tight turns when you can't sell a tight turn, that type of stuff,
Yeah. You know why you can't do it. It goes into making it happen.
Yeah. So that, I think that's key, is just learning the business. And one more thing on that front would be mentors. Like I think a lot of salespeople fall into this type A, I've got it. The type A only child. Like I'm a difficult guy to manage, frankly. And for me, it was critical to find mentors who were right for me, like a mentor who could put me in check when I needed to be, and learn from. Like the generation in front of you knows stuff. Like I know you're 20 something and that you're going to be the CEO, and you probably will be, but right now, like that, latch onto somebody and let them just take you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that. That's one of those pieces of advice that you hear so many people in pretty high level positions across every industry talk about, is find mentors.
Yeah.
Not just unique to what we do.
Yeah. Kimpton had a really good program where they, well, frankly, it was just because it was a program. It was, we are going to have a mentor program, and here's how you apply to be a mentor, and here's how you apply to get one. And that, I just thought that was a fantastic way to really develop talent internally, use each other. Because otherwise, if you don't formalize it, some people are like, how do I find that person? And then you end up with one or two people who, like 20 people want to be mentored by them, and they can't. So you've got to put some structure around that if you're in a leadership position to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Great best practice. So wrapping up the show here, getting to the end of it, I like to find out from people in different positions, different professions.
Okay.
If there's one thing that people can do in hospitality, in a hotel, in their career, based on your experience, that they can put in place right now that would give them the most bang for their time, energy, and effort. From your perspective, what would that thing be?
So if you're in it right now and you are frankly lucky enough to be able to step back into work in the next couple of months, specifically during the time we're in, I encourage all the salespeople out there to reach out to everyone in that Rolodex, in your Salesforce database, and don't sell. Like, keep it personal. I think we use the term trusted advisor as a little bit cliche, but be a friend. Call your customers and listen. Ask them how they're doing. If they're ready to buy something right now, they'll tell you. They're not. Like, call them. Your customers are going to remember the partners that were there to support them when there was nothing for you to gain from you being supportive. Like those relationships are going to last much longer than this. And at the end of the day, that's what sales is all about. The most successful salespeople I know are truly friends with the people who are buying from them. And I don't know, sometimes you get in other businesses and even internally in the industry, as a leader for a large part of my career, you've always got to draw that line between being friends with the people you work with, especially the people you're leading and managing. So it can get, you need to watch that relationship, but go be friends with these people, like help them out. This is the perfect time to not talk shop.
Right.
So, and the flip side of that from a company perspective, I'll add, is use this opportunity to take care of your people, right? I know we're all challenged with what we can pay, right? A lot of people are out there making 60, 70, 80% what they used to make, for example, if they've retained their work. An example that I've used recently is, for example, if you're looking for what to do with your sales team, don't kill the incentive plan, right? If you want to cut wages by 80%, figure out what you're paying those people with their incentive and cut the wage back to the point where you can keep an incentive plan. You have a bunch of like coin operated salespeople out there still, and there's no incentive. They're going to be spending a lot of time on LinkedIn, right? So this is just because not having money isn't an excuse to not take care of people. I think we learned that in our personal relationships as well. You can show love and care without buying someone something.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. I love it. That's that great piece of advice. Good place to wrap up the show.
Awesome. Good.
So if people want to find you, if they want to get a hold of you, hire you for consulting gigs, what's the best place for people to go?
Sure. There's a quick one-pager I set up online. It's heyhogan.com. So pretty simple.
Yep.
I can be reached at josh@heyhogan.com. And yeah, I'm out there and I'm available and I will travel.
Love
it. Yeah. Good luck to everyone out there right now, though. I really appreciate this time, Adam. This has been really fun and refreshing to engage in the business. And I'm looking forward 100%. To things starting to trickle back.
Yeah, so am I. Thanks so much for taking the time. And it's great to have you on the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Proven Principles Podcast with Adam Knight. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. The podcast is brought to you by Knowing Hospitality, a full-service hotel management company that puts your performance first by rethinking the management model. Visit knowinghospitality.com to learn more. Until next time.